Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. The Season 1 Reloaded update ended up adding in a lot of changes when it comes to weapons. We saw some buffs, we saw some nerfs, we saw a surprising lack of changes to some of the top tier weapons. We even saw a new weapon in the form of the Chimera. So safe to say, the Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer meta has shifted, and today we are breaking down the new meta update and what weapons are the best after this patch. So I've got my handy dandy list of changes here, some of which actually apply to Warzone only, so they won't change much here, but we also have several changes here that actually do impact quite a bit. But first things first, let's talk about the Chimera. This is of course our brand new rifle. It's really like a rifle SMG hybrid with how it performs. It's very lightweight, very much so a close range rifle, similar to the 74U. In my opinion, the 74U still brings a little bit more power, but the Chimera is solid. And for that reason, I think this is a top tier rifle. Like I said, the cast-off 74U is just so good up close, even after the nerf that we'll get to here in a bit, that I think it stays in absolute meta. And I don't know if these are necessarily one-to-one. You know, you could take either or and dominate. I think in a gunfight where a good player has the 74U and a good player has a Chimera, the 74U still wins, but that's not to say the Chimera is not a ridiculously good rifle right now. So definitely a top tier choice when it comes down to it. Not really a huge surprise there, considering it's an in-season weapon and there's a store bundle immediately available for it, but regardless, it is very good. Now, I'm sure you noticed that in the patch notes, they attacked a lot of the pistols. The Akimbo P890, the Akimbo X12, the Akimbo Basilisk, the Akimbo Deagle, they all got nerfed, but only to armored opponents. So that doesn't really apply to multiplayer at all, because you're hardly running into players that have armor, right? So that doesn't really change anything for any of those pistols. They're basically just staying where they're at. Now, the MX9, which previously I had an average as being, you know, one of the SMGs that was good, like it's super low recoil and super easy to use, but not necessarily crazy fast to kill or anything like that. It definitely got a significant buff in this update when it comes to mobility. Obviously, you know, it is an SMG already, so it's gonna be nice and fast, but now it's even better if you're using the 32 round mag, because for that, they buffed the general movement speed, the ADS speed, and the sprint to fire, which in my opinion absolutely makes this a competitive weapon when it comes down to it. Also, I feel like I gotta drop the BAS P down. This is an SMG not really doing it for me. It just doesn't feel like it's all that consistent. So hey, little bonus change there. But yeah, MX9 after the buff, feeling a little bit better than before. Nothing too crazy because it was only to the 32 round mag, but you're probably going to be using that regardless. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the cast-off 74U did actually see a slight nerf. They basically nerfed the close range damage to it. So now it requires one more chest shot to get a 3-hit kill. But close range chest shots are very, very easy. So that's a pretty insignificant nerf when it comes down to it. So that one is absolutely staying as a top tier meta choice right now. I think is just an absolute beast and arguably the best close range option in the entire game. By the way, as we're breaking this all down, if you guys are new to the channel, every day this is your one-stop shop for all things going on in COD between MW2, Warzone 2, and DMZ. So if you want to guarantee you never miss a thing when it comes to updates, class setups, tips, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications. Also, if you guys enjoyed this video, let me know by dropping a like on it as well. Let's try and aim for 2,500 likes on this one. And I do want to give a quick shout out to my friends over at G Fuel. They're currently running a last minute holiday sale where my discount code Immortal actually stacks on top of the sale that they're doing for a bunch of different tubs and flavors on the site already. So if you see any flavors that you like listed as a discounted price right now, you can throw in code Immortal at checkout and get an additional 20 to 30% off your orders. So tons of savings there potentially if you're trying to restock or maybe even try a new flavor. Link for that will be down in the description below. Now, next up, we have probably the most significant buff that we've seen to a weapon so far in Modern Warfare 2, which is obviously very exciting. The cast-off 545 got a buff to its velocity, so it's going to feel like it hits harder and more consistent over range now. It got a close range damage buff as well, so it's going to be more lethal there, and it also got a chest multiplier buff as well. And this, in my opinion, I mean, the cast-off 545 was one of the lower tier rifles, might even make it a top tier choice here. Obviously, with how fast the TTK is here in MW2, so few guns feel meh, which is what average is. We don't have a below average category on here because it'd be pretty hard for a weapon to be below average in a game that has a TTK this fast. So I'd say competitive is like the more medium ground, and the fact that we have so many top tier choices here because of this TTK, I think speaks a lot to, you know, how dominant some of these guns can be. And the cast-off 545 now with this buff is right there with the Lockman, right there with the M4, the M13, these other choices, low recoil, easy to land shots consistently, so that realistic TTK is now looking very spicy. Now, the MP7, aka the Vel 46, did see a slight buff. They buffed the far damage range, so I think it has like 4 or 5 extra meters now before its final damage drop off. It also got a slight movement buff and then also a hipfire spread buff, so it'll be a little bit more accurate. The MP7 is still very underwhelming though as an SMG in comparison to things like the Lockman, like the Vosnev, like the PD SW, the P90. So it definitely, I don't think, moves off of this, but it's gonna feel slightly better than it did before, which is nice because before it was not anything to write home about. Now, surprisingly, the 50 GS got some pretty solid buffs too. They buffed its overall damage range and its potential to one-shot headshot. That range is now extended as well. They also buffed the neck and upper body multipliers, and it has better velocity. It still though is so unforgiving if you miss a shot that I think that's what keeps it in check versus things like the Basilisk, the X12, X13 auto, so on and so forth. Mainly the Basilisk is better than the Deagle because of its akimbo properties. If there was no akimbo on either of these, they'd probably both be an average, but I think the Deagle stays an average. It's still the worst pistol in my opinion. They did also nerf the shotguns, but that was also a Warzone only and DMZ only nerf where they can't one-shot a fully plated enemy, but that's not going to be something you run into here in multiplayer. So pretty much all the shotguns are still going to be in competitive. They're still going to be very, very strong when it comes down to it, especially close range. You're going to get one shot the majority of the time, it feels like. Then for some reason, the final patch note change here, we're going to adjust some other things as needed, but the final patch note change, they just absolutely destroyed the riot shield. I mean, the riot shield is not a practical weapon to begin with. It's not competitive. It's not anything you'd use outside of camo challenges or for a gimmick. And they went ahead and killed the movement. They made it an extra hit to kill. Now it's a 3-hit kill now. So if you're going for gold with this thing, bless your soul, I'm so sorry you have to go through this nerfed version of it now. They also nerfed the speed in which you can throwing knife players with the riot shield out. Like, this thing got a hardcore nerf. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it is a niche weapon. You're only using it for very specific situations, so it's not realistically ranked on this list. But if it was and there was no niche category, this would be the garbage of the garbage tier. It'd be the absolute worst option here. So I don't know why they did that, but it is kind of funny and cruel at the same time. Now, you guys have been saying this a lot. Zach, the M16 is not as bad as you're making it out to be. You're right. It's still bad. It's still not a good rifle, but it's better than garbage. Like, it's usable after the buff. So yeah, it's more of an average gun at this point. The M16 is not the worst thing in the world. I'm still never going to use it again unless they break it in some crazy way, but it is better than garbage. You guys are right. I also think the Vosnev is deserving of going up to the absolute meta category. This thing, when built correctly, is fast and lethal. It's got a great TTK, but also is one of the more speedy options that we have for SMGs, and I've really been enjoying that lately. And frankly, the TAC V's power is so crazy, I gotta buff this thing back up to top meta, or bump this thing back up to top meta. These buffs and nerfs are going to my head. This thing is like a 3-shot kill, it seems like, at all ranges with this TTK in multiplayer. So, I mean, if you can control the recoil, that thing is utterly absurd. And then lastly, I mean, the M4. It was GA'd in comp for a reason. The thing is ridiculously good. That and the Scar are like sort of the go-to rifles right now in terms of mid-range, which obviously is a lot of fights here in multiplayer. So both of those consistent options. All that being said, though, that is effectively how I see this meta, you know, sort of panning out as of right now. Very, very diverse, even more so than Warzone, where things are pretty solid because the TTK is just so fast in multiplayer. So many weapons are usable, and that's why we have so few and average ones that you actually don't see incredible TTKs with. Also, I feel like the wrap can probably get bumped up to competitive while we're at it, but like, so few weapons in this game, you're like, oh, that felt like it didn't hit hard, right? Because this TTK is so fast. Everything here kills so quickly, especially the absolute meta options, but you got plenty of choices here. If you're looking for something different to try out, you got a very long list of options there. So that being said, that's gonna wrap things up for this one. If you guys enjoyed the video, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you're new here, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications. That way you can always guarantee you're up to date with all things going on in COD. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.